Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a book that makes us think differently about work. We're diving into Szilvia Olah's The Corporate Kindergarten, which she wanted to explore. And getting ready for this has been fascinating.
Yeah, it really is an interesting book because Ola brings her own experiences from the corporate world, and she combines it with a deep dive into something called infantilization theory, which was the focus of her master's dissertation in psychology.
That blend of real-world stuff and academic research, yeah, it's potent.
Yeah.
And the main point of The Corporate Kindergarten is how companies, often meaning well, end up treating employees like children, which creates this, as Ola puts it, a kidult culture.
Right, and it is sort of a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Companies want grown-up, responsible employees, but then their systems and culture, they undermine those qualities.
I think we've all felt that tension, haven't we? But Ola goes deeper. She ties her arguments to infantilization theory, which comes from psychology. Could you explain that a bit for us?
Of course, infantilization theory is basically when you treat adults as if they were children, you're impacting how they grow, and sometimes even making them act more childlike. And that can show up in different ways, like what kind of rewards and recognition are given, how much autonomy and decision-making is allowed, even the actual physical environment.
So it's more than just being annoyed by, like, mandatory fun or silly team building, right? There's psychology behind why these things can be harmful.
Absolutely. And Ola gives some really good examples of how this happens in companies. But she points out that infantilization happens in other places too.
Hmm.
Personal relationships, societal structures, it's surprisingly common. And that makes it harder to even notice it, let alone address it.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the connections to my own experiences already. Let's get into some of the specifics. Ola is really critical of training and development.
She really goes after those common practices that treat employees like, well, like they're incapable, like they can't handle information or learn on their own. Things like forcing people to attend training even if it's not relevant, or spoon-feeding information instead of giving people tools to explore on their own.
Look, they're assuming we all need hand-holding, right? Through every single learning moment.
Yeah. The book has so many stories about training sessions that honestly seem better suited for a kindergarten class than adults. There's one that comes to mind, the rubbish bin and markers activity. Can you imagine a grown person not feeling patronized by that?
Or how about, like, building Lego structures during some team building exercise? I mean, come on. Who thinks that's how adults actually learn collaboration or problem-solving skills? I'm not 5 anymore. I left Lego behind long ago.
Exactly. And Ola compares this stuff to what she thinks actually works for adults, like letting people direct their own learning, encouraging them to figure out what they need to learn and go after it, giving them resources and support to do that. She's big on applying what you learn, too, taking that knowledge and using it in real situations.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have been there, right? You're in a training and you're thinking, when am I ever going to use this?
That's it exactly. Learning should be relevant and useful. Then it becomes engaging and, it means something. And that's how you really grow and develop.
Okay, so training is one thing. How about employee engagement? That's where Ola really gets into forced fun. I think we can all relate to that.
Oh, yeah. The dreaded team building activities, the big celebrations for, just finishing a small task, using food as a reward all the time.
It's like they're trying to distract us from the actual work, isn't it?
And it can be so frustrating. Ola shares some funny stories, some kind of disturbing ones too, about these engagement things, like being forced to dance in a circle during work, or, get this, being made to do a company-wide Valentine's Day card exchange. I mean, seriously.
I think I would honestly quit if someone made me do either of those things, and I'm not even joking.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree. It's so out of touch.
And Ola's point is, these attempts at engagement, they're missing the point, right? They don't address the reasons why people aren't engaged, which are usually things like feeling undervalued, not having control over your work, or just not feeling heard.
And I think this goes back to that infantilization idea. When you're treating employees like kids who need constant entertainment and distractions, well, you're basically saying their real concerns and needs don't matter.
And that their opinions and ideas aren't valuable.
Exactly. So instead of these gimmicks, Ola suggests, actually talking openly and honestly, creating a space where employees can share what they think and give feedback, and then actually addressing those issues and building real connections between team members, not through forced stuff, but by building a culture of, working together and respecting each other.
And dealing with the real challenges, right? Like, imagine that, actually acknowledging that work can be tough and conflict happens, But no, we get pizza parties and icebreakers instead.
Ola gives this example of a restaurant. They had a really bad head chef, toxic guy. Management tried to fix it with team building and forced fun. And guess what? It didn't work.
Right. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone, isn't it? You're ignoring the real issue. You're just making things worse.
And that's the real harm of infantilization. You keep avoiding real problems and use these superficial fixes. What you're really saying is employees can't handle tough situations. They can't be trusted to work through conflict. They need to be protected from the real world.
It's condescending, but it's also taking away their power, isn't it? They can't develop the skills and resilience they need for their careers, for life in general.
Exactly. So we see this pattern again, right? Good intentions, but opposite effect. And it's because they misunderstand what being an adult at work really means.
Okay, so we've talked about training, we've talked about engagement, both areas where Ola sees a lot of this infantilizing going on. Let's talk about appreciation and rewards.
Right. This is where the difference between genuine appreciation and, well, patronizing and pointless rewards becomes really obvious.
And Ola does not hold back, right? She's really critical of how companies get this wrong.
She argues that giving out useless gifts and doing meaningless gestures instead of fair pay and real recognition, it actually devalues employees.
And she has this whole section in the book. It's called Worst Employee Appreciation Examples. Some of them are so bad, it's almost funny.
Yeah, like getting a small blanket and some oranges as a reward for hitting a €1 billion target. Or a company-branded cup for winning a major industry award.
Seriously, what are you supposed to do with that?
Right. It's almost insulting. It's like they're saying, hey, thanks for all your hard work. Here's some junk for your drawer.
But it's so disconnected from what people actually want. Most people would rather have decent pay, chances to learn and grow, or even just a sincere thank you from their boss.
Exactly. And this is where the work of psychologist Carol Dweck comes in. She's done a lot of research on how praise and rewards affect motivation.
Dweck says that praising average work all the time or giving rewards just for showing up, what she calls participation trophies, it can actually backfire.
Yeah, it sets a low bar, right? It creates a culture where people don't feel like they need to try hard.
Because they know they'll get rewarded anyway.
So we see this infantilization again. Instead of treating people like competent adults who can do great things, companies are creating a culture of mediocrity without realizing it.
And that's not just bad for employees. It hurts the business in the end, too. Because when people aren't challenged or motivated to do their best, everyone loses.
So what does Ola recommend instead of these, infantilizing rewards?
Well, she's big on rewarding exceptional work, genuinely, and using praise strategically for when people make progress or put in effort. Basically, treat your employees like adults. It's like they're afraid that if you actually treat employees like capable adults and show them respect, they'll just, take advantage or something.
Yeah, there's definitely that element of control in it. If you keep people dependent, they're easier to manage.
Which brings us to something Ola talks about a lot, staff accommodation. And you mentioned this is particularly relevant for you with your background in hospitality in the GCC.
It is a unique situation. Ola's research on this is really interesting. She talked to people who were living in these staff accommodations, and what she found was these environments, with all the rules and lack of privacy and being watched all the time, it actually encourages people to act more childlike.
It's like being back in boarding school or something. But you're a grown-up with a job and responsibilities.
Exactly. Like imagine having a curfew, needing permission to have friends over, or even being told how you can arrange your own furniture.
It's kind of crazy. What kind of message does that send,
It says, you're not capable of running your own life. And the interesting thing is how it all connects back to the research on infantilization. When you limit people's autonomy and privacy and their ability to make decisions, it really messes with their confidence and their ability to be responsible.
Ola has some pretty wild examples in her interviews. Needing permission to move their furniture, not being allowed to drink alcohol, even if they have a government license. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, it shows that even now, in the 21st century, there are workplaces that take away basic adult freedoms.
And it's more than just inconvenient. This kind of living situation can really affect people's self-esteem, their mental health. You're basically telling them they can't be trusted to make simple decisions about their own lives.
And what's especially striking is that many of these employees are working incredibly hard. They send money back home to their families, they're being incredibly responsible in one area of their lives, but treated like children in another.
It's like this weird contradiction. It must be so hard to deal with.
It is. It raises a big question, right? How can we want a workforce that's engaged, motivated, and responsible, but then treat them like this.
That's the challenge. And it's not easy. But Olah's book, it gives us some good starting points, like
Okay.
how to move away from this corporate kindergarten model and build workplaces that value and respect their people.
One of the big things I got from the book is we need to encourage self-reliance and responsibility. It starts with things like promoting self-directed learning, giving employees more control over their work, and involving them in decisions.
Instead of always telling them what to do, give them the tools they need and trust them to figure it out.
Exactly. And when it comes to engagement, it's about moving past those superficial things and focusing on creating an environment where people actually feel valued, heard, and respected.
Where their work matters, their opinions are heard, and they have a sense of ownership.
It's about building a culture of trust, mutual respect, and open communication.
And obviously ditching those meaningless rewards and focusing on genuine appreciation and fair pay.
It's about recognizing that employees are adults with their own lives and needs and treating them that way.
So much of what Olah writes about, it really hits home. I'm sure our listeners are having some aha moments too.
I think one of the best things about the book is it gives us a way to talk about these things that everyone kind of knows but doesn't say out loud. It helps us see these patterns of infantilization that we might not have noticed before.
And it gives us the power to challenge those practices, right? And push for a more mature and respectful workplace.
It reminds us that change starts with awareness. And now that we have this knowledge, we can start asking different questions, pushing back against the norm, and demanding better for ourselves and our coworkers.
This deep dive into the corporate kindergarten has given me a lot to think about, for sure.
I hope it sparked some critical reflection for our listeners as well. Like, are you seeing any of this stuff in your own workplace? What can you do to advocate for a more mature and respectful work environment? Remember, change doesn't happen overnight.
It takes both employers and employees working together to create a workplace that's more mature and fulfilling.
It's about recognizing that we all play a role in creating a better experience for everyone.
You know, it's like this whole corporate kindergarten thing. It feels like it's part of a bigger problem, like maybe a lack of trust, or maybe just being afraid to let go of control.
I think you're onto something there. One of the groups Olah really criticizes is HR. She says they're part of the problem, that they actually help create this infantilizing culture.
Yeah, she doesn't pull any punches, does she? In the book, she talks about how HR often gets caught up in the surface stuff, the parties and celebrations, all those pointless perks, instead of focusing on what actually matters to people.
Right. She talks about how HR is almost like a partner in crime, enabling these infantilizing practices instead of pushing for a more mature and respectful workplace.
It's a harsh critique, but honestly, after everything we've talked about, I can see her point. Who has us actually looking out for employees when all this stuff is happening?
That's the question, isn't it? Olah argues that a good HR person should be making sure employees are treated fairly and ethically, with respect. That means things like advocating for fair pay, reasonable hours, chances to actually grow and learn, stuff that makes a real difference.
And pushing back against the things that make people dependent,
Yeah,
that take away their sense of agency.
exactly. Recognizing that employees are adults, they can make their own decisions and handle tough situations. And the work environment needs to reflect that.
So what does this all mean for the people who are feeling infantilized at work? We can't all just quit our jobs and start our own companies.
True. But there are things we can do. Olah really emphasizes self-advocacy. Speak up about what you need. Ask for opportunities to grow. Challenge the practices that feel infantilizing.
Right. Take ownership of your own development. And push back against those subtle ways you're being treated like a kid.
That's it. And remember, change takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes both employers and employees to shift the culture to something better, more mature, and respectful.
Well, this deep dives into the corporate kindergarten has been really eye-opening. It's definitely given us a lot to think about, both individually and as, a society, I guess.
I hope it's made you think too, listener. Do you see any of these practices in your own work life? What can you do to make your workplace better, more mature, and respectful? Remember, awareness is the first step.
And now that you've heard all about the corporate kindergarten, you can start challenging the way things are done and help build a workplace that truly values and respects its employees. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Leave a comment, subscribe to the show, and follow us for more deep dives into the world of work and beyond.